All right, so while we wait for people to come in, let's just sink into our seats and just let our body and mind open to the room. You know, if you kind of let your eyes go soft, you can take in the whole room at once. Who is that? Oh. Hey, Lisa. Nice to see you. So we're just getting started, and I'm sure a few more people will roll in. These things are usually sparsely attended. So we're just sinking into our chairs, and we're just letting our body and mind take in the room around us, landing in this moment. And just let yourself slow down. From this place of just being here, see if you can start to parse apart the part of you that is just aware from the part of you that is tangled in stories. That part of you that is aware of the stories. From that part of you that is addicted to playing with this intricate network of personal stories. Just while you sit here, casually, with a little curiosity. Sitting in a room, present. Who is the watcher? What is the watcher inside of you? Words to answer that question, but see if you can answer it through authenticity. Authentic feeling. Become aware of awareness. And let's just sit with that for a little bit. Becoming aware of our awareness. Be in this moment, aware of the one that is aware of this moment. Watch the mind, watch the watcher of the mind. I want to talk to you a little bit, and then we're going to go back to this practice. When you become aware of awareness itself, when you try to be in touch with the part of you that is actually aware and watching and tracking, it puts you right up at the top of the mountain. You know, so much of your life is downstream from the top of that mountain. That awareness gets tangled into all sorts of stories, and it comes together with other people's stories. And the stream just gets more and more polluted as it goes down the mountain. But when you actually go back to the watcher itself, you go right back up to the top of the mountain. And at first, it's kind of like a weird feeling, because where do you go from there? You know, there's nothing there. If I'm just aware of awareness, and I'm not rolling down the stream trying to have some spiritual experience or trying to open up to you, that nothing at the top of the mountain is just no thing in the world of stories. But to see what I'm talking about, you have to actually get there, which is quite easy. I mean, I think most of you just felt that, right? To some extent. You get there, and then you have to stay there. You have to abide there. At first, the mind tries to pull you away, and you keep returning, and at first it feels almost like you're trying to cling to the top of that mountain. But there's this realization that comes that you can just let go of the part that's pulling away. And what that feels like is just making that place your home for now, where you're just abiding naturally at the top of the mountain. Your mind will naturally fall silent, and then your job is just to stay there. Stay there for this entire class. Stay there for however long you decide to set your timer. Stay there for whatever period of time you've set aside. Then you'll start seeing if you can stay there while you're washing your dishes, stay there while you're driving to work, stay there while you are walking into a meeting that stresses you out. You know, find ways to do it that doesn't have a weird look on your face. You learn that the hard way. But you find ways to bring that with you wherever you go. But that door has to open. And the way that you get it to open is you have to stay there. You have to abide there for a period of time. Every single one of you, and anyone who could ever listen to this recording in the future, has your own magic number of minutes that you have to stay there before it will open the first time. And then it will open in less time every time after that. But for each one of you, you have a very specific number of minutes. It's different for all of us, but it's not something that you have to actually go to a real mountaintop for. And you really don't even need a teacher to have an experience with it. Usually you just need a teacher to continually tell you to go there. For some of you, it might be 15 minutes. For some of you, it might be 5 minutes. For some of you, it might be 2 hours. But the fact is, for every one of you, there is a threshold that you can reach where on the other side of that threshold, everything opens up. And in that expanded space, there are other thresholds to reach by continuing to abide there. And so it opens and opens and opens. So tonight, what I would really like for us to do is I'd like for us to go there and stay there. That's real meditation practice. Not all this talking that I always have us do. You know, real meditation practice is getting up to the top of that mountain and then at first dealing with the little challenges from the mind that come. And if you just keep staying there, keep abiding, those challenges will go away. And you'll just continue to breathe from that space. So before we go back into it, because we're going to go in for a long time, are there any questions? Is anyone confused on what I'm talking about? If you have any, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or you can put them in the chat. It's it's kind of, yeah. So it just depends on what you mean by delight. So it is that place where you are not clinging to any one of the two pairs of opposites. So it's not delight versus despair. It is letting go of comparison, which I think is what you're saying. You know, you walk out and you are with what is, and you're not comparing it to some other moment in your life. You're just there with what is, experiencing it. Yes, that will put you at the top of the mountain. And there will be moments of delight, but for most people, and for me as well, you're going to have periods where that feels very flat, where that kind of realm of freedom hasn't opened yet. And that's where most people are starting. You know, you're someone, you've come to meditation classes for years and years and years, so you've had a lot of experiences along the way. But for a lot of people who are just starting, the beginning of that looks like nothing at all. It looks like everything is blank and they neither like nor dislike anything. And so that can seem, yeah, in the beginning, it'll be just like a piece that kind of becomes energized, and so you'll find you sleep better at night. But if you can abide there for stretches of time, you will eventually have this moment where your entire consciousness opens up to a new level of functioning. It's like stepping into a new world, but not a new physical world. The world is still here. it's sort of just like everything that was happening in the background becomes the foreground, and all of the noise in the foreground of your life just becomes the background. And you spend more and more time there. And there's an ocean of exploration that comes just in the silence itself that is very difficult to talk about because it has nothing to do with the stories of this world. It's just something that you make a practice of every day, diving into it and just learning more and more through the feeling states of that silence. So, the goal tonight, more than anything, is to get there and stay there. And the way that we get there is we are going to become aware of our awareness. So, when the mind starts to come in to talk, who's aware that it's talking? Who is looking at the mind right now? Okay, if you're aware of that, you can't get lost in the story that it's presenting. You're not going to play with it. You keep, it's like it's trying to invite you downstream and you are just hopping right back up. Who is listening to the mind? Who is aware of this thing that my mind is telling me I have to do? Okay? So you just keep going back to the beginning, reset, 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 and eventually the mind will stop blabbering away at you. Okay? And the idea is once that starts to become boring, stay there anyways. Okay? That's the biggest hurdle for most people. They get there and there's nothing there, and so they're bored. But if you stay there, first your body will start to charge with energy, your mental being will start to charge with energy. It takes time, but you are putting yourself in a charger. And after a period of time, that increased energy will actually open up your consciousness to new things. And as far as I can tell, there is no end to the unfolding of that. And every opening makes your life better, not worse. Because the reality of life is what you're walking into, and the reality of life is actually really good news. It's nowhere near as stressful as the stories we created for it. Okay, so everybody, do you understand what we're doing? Okay. Well, the breath is happening in the moment, so you're welcome to be aware of it, but who's aware of the breath? Can you catch that difference? So you can watch the breath, but who's watching the breath? That's what I want you to be aware of. So I know that you've got a lot of like patterns that you've set in place with watching the breath, and you can probably get there faster if you incorporate that. But don't lose sight of the of the being that's aware of the breath. Does that make sense? It's just one step further up. Okay. All right, I'm going to mute you all just so that your dogs don't start barking. And you can unmute yourself if you have a question. But for now, let's go back in. Sink into this moment. And from a very relaxed place, but with strong willingness and determination, become aware of the watcher. And when the mind comes to drag you down the river, just become aware of the being that is watching the mind. Watch the watcher. Nothing to understand, nothing to achieve. And once you get there, make it your home. Stay there. watch the watcher. Stay in this state, watching the watcher. And I just want to point out a few things. At first, when you watch the watcher, there's usually this tendency to go internal with it. You kind of let go of the room a little bit to just stabilize the mind. But your eyes are open. And then there's this thing that happens where you get pulled into the scenery of the room and then pulled back to going internal to get control. Pulled back into the scenery of the room. And it's just like teasing a little bit, entering the river just a little bit and then jumping back to the top of the mountain. Entering just a little bit and jumping back to the top of the mountain. And I want to tell you the trick to being in this room without leaving the top of the mountain is you have to set everything in this room free. Forget its name. Forget all the knowledge you've stored about it. Let it all go. Everything in this room, as solid as it may be, is permitted to become anything it wants. It has its own becoming, and you release your investment in it. You may even notice things start to get a little wavy when you do that, because you're not holding it in place with your mind anymore. But if you can let all of it go, then you can really be present in this room, in this moment, watching the watcher at the top of the mountain. Let go of the definition of a table. Let go of the definition of a computer. Let go of every memory you have around it. And just be present in the silent authenticity of the watcher. Watch the watcher. Stay there. Get there and stay there. In full awareness. couple of you fell down the mountain. Get back up to the top. Renew your focus as if you're just starting over for the first time. As if you haven't been doing this for 15 minutes. Let go of time. Let go of the trail of time. Who's aware of time? Become aware of that being. Who's watching time? Step back up to the top of the mountain. It's okay if it's uncomfortable. You're not here to be comfortable. Okay, let's come out. wonder if you can feel what that does to your body, the lightening that it does to your energy. You know, if you make that your home base, then you have a totally different way that you can get through life. You know, most of your life happens downstream, right? And how different would it be instead of the way most people live, where, you get up and you're pretty much at the base of the mountain just trying to get yourself out of bed and trying to remember why you want to get up and go to this horrible job, to getting your head on straight and then kind of just lifting yourself to a place where you can, go and deal with coworkers and the dramas that exist. And then finally going home tired and going to sleep. It's a very different life if you can make this your home base, where you start from that place of pure consciousness, and with consciousness, travel downstream to deal with the things in your life. When you start from the bottom and try and just heave your way up the mountain, you're going to find that there are times where you're just in busy work mode down further on the mountain, when really, you should be up in more of a heart mode, engaging with your spouse, or, moments that really should call for tenderness and a little bit more clarity. It's like you're so busy in the lower levels that you can't quite lift out of it. You can't make the shift. Whereas if you start at this as your home base and you return to it frequently throughout your day, every time you're alone, in between moments in a conversation, if you just kind of come back to this, then you're going to hear more of what's coming forward from your day. You're going to see more of what needs to be dealt with because, your attention is seeing everything at once. It's not skewed. And you can depart from your position on top of the mountain to deal with it. But going down from above, it'll be a lot easier to be there emotionally for someone if they need it. And you can also then dip down just to the level that you need to actually get your work done without falling asleep in it. Most of us, we wake up asleep in it. And so we heave our way up the mountain just so that we can keep earning a living. It's survival. But if you can get yourself to the top of the mountain in the way that we've been practicing tonight, then you can make excursions into life so that you can keep your clarity intact, so that you don't have to fall asleep. There's a certain standard that you start to set for yourself that you just don't fall behind in. You don't go below it. So if you're at work and things are starting to get so wound up and stressful that you catch yourself about to get angry, or you catch yourself about to just fall into some kind of emotion that's going to knock you flat on your ass, that's a moment where you take a breath, you separate yourself for a moment, and you get back to the top of the mountain. You clear yourself out, and then you figure out how and if you should reapproach that situation. Not every situation is appropriate for you. You are spiritual warriors. If something is abusive enough, you should get away from it. And usually that's a moment-to-moment thing. You might have someone who's being abusive in the moment, but that doesn't define the entire relationship. But you need to know when to actually step away. And I don't just mean walk away from the person or the situation. I mean walk away from your network of stories that's keeping you bound into it. You need to show yourself over and over again that you can drop it all like that. When I sit down to teach a class, I almost never know what that class is going to be about. I just drop everything and I wait until the words come. I've been doing that for 15 to 20 years. You know, when you can just let go, suddenly all the resources are at your disposal in a moment. You usually know what to say. You usually know roughly how to say it without having to think about it or figure it out. And even if you stumble over your words, it's usually received with the clarity that is coming from that place when you speak. So people don't tend to misinterpret it too horribly. But this experience that you had tonight is something that you can actually make your home base. But the longer you stay away from it, the longer you stray, the harder it's going to be to get back to it. I mean, you can always come here once a week and I will try and zap you back there. But, you know, did you ever see that movie, What Dreams May Come? It was a movie about a man who was this very, very positive person, and then his wife became very depressed, and she killed herself. And she got stuck in this kind of hell realm on the other end because of her despair. You know, her despair was just holding her there. And Robin Williams died and basically was in this heaven realm because he was just very light and positive, anyways. And he was going to venture down into the lower realms of life to try and save her. And what everyone kept saying, well, the problem is you can only spend so much time there before it traps your attention and you won't be able to leave. And truthfully, they're describing life, not death. There's only so much time you can spend in a chaotic storyline before you can't remember why you even care to get out of it. You know, I've watched people over the years, so I used to teach this class live, and I would watch over the years people get really into this, have amazing experiences, just coming, I did it once a month, they'd come every month, and then it's like they would leave for a few months and they'd forget why they even care. It's like life just takes over. It's not their fault. Life just comes in and starts redirecting their attention, and everything in life is in a state of entropy. Okay, it's all just becoming rubble so that something new can grow out of it. So when you just let it lead you, it leads you usually into greater and greater chaos. So after a year or two, they would come back. And, I'd be happy to see them and they'd be happy to see me. And they would wake back up and they'd be so relieved and just so happy. And then things would be good for a while. And then, they would leave again for a period of time. And then they would just get stuck and then they'd go through that cycle again and again. And it's not about coming back to me. It's about coming back to the top of the mountain. It's about remembering that you care about that. Clarity. So that's what I would love to see you practice this month. I would love it if every day you could just set an intention at the beginning of your day that you are going to get there and you are going to make that your home base for the day. And you're going to depart from it to deal with the things you have to deal with and to deal with the people that you have to deal with. And you'll go ahead and be a human. You're not going to walk around all aloof. But that descent into humanity, it has a thread of awareness that you have to get back up to the top of the mountain. That's the surface of the water. You have to get back up there to take a breath. Otherwise, you are going to sink to the bottom in a way you can't get back up from. All right. Does that make sense? Am I talking crazy? Thank you. It's one of those things that if you'll just try it, like really do it, just make it your own personal thing this month, you will learn something really, really important about yourself and about what you actually are. Okay? You'll also learn important things about how your world mirrors where you're coming from to you because you'll see an abrupt shift in how people respond to you. Okay? So, are there any other questions or concerns or anything else you'd like to discuss tonight? And Lisa, it is really wonderful to see you again. All right, everybody. Have a great night. I will be back here again on Thursday of next week. All right. You too. Thank you for coming.